What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my game picks and predictions heading into Week 6 of the 2024 college football season. Going back to my picks and predictions from last week in Week 5, I got 6 out of the 10 games right and then 4 out of the 10 games wrong, so my overall record was 6-4. And my overall record throughout this college football season is now 30-22. Going into Week 6, we do have a little bit of good games coming up. It probably will be a quiet weekend based off of what happened, of course, from this past weekend. Don't have like a lot of great games, of course, that we had from last week, but it should be another interesting and another entertaining weekend of college football. So again, I'm going to give you my game picks and predictions here. Picking out 10 of the biggest games, in my opinion, for Week 6 and giving you score predictions as well. Not that score predictions really matter for me. What I'm really mattering is giving you the team that I think is going to win. So let's go ahead and get into my predictions here for Week 6 of the 2024 college football season. And we will start here with an SEC conference game. We got Missouri versus Texas A&M. This game going to be at noon Eastern time on ABC. Texas A&M favored by 2.5 points, and the over and under is at 48.5. You got Texas A&M that's coming off a very competitive win against Arkansas this past weekend. Thought the defense played pretty well for them. The offense went with a change at quarterback. The offense may not be really explosive for the Aggies, and especially the quarterback play for them. But, the backup quarterback, I thought he did a really nice job here for the Aggies. Texas A&M gets the home field advantage in this one. This is a really big game, in my opinion. You got Missouri, that's ranked number 9 in the AP poll. But the Tigers haven't really been tested yet. This will be definitely Missouri's first real test. Yes, they had a real test against Vanderbilt a couple weeks ago. But that's a team that's not on their level. And same thing with Boston College. Missouri is 4-0. This will be definitely a fired-up crowd. Texas A&M, I think the strategy for them is going to really run the football here. Missouri's got a pretty good offensive team, but this will definitely be their first real test here for the Tigers. Missouri's first road game of the season as well. They're coming out of a bye week, so maybe that bye week does help them out to make this a close game, but I just do like this Texas A&M team a little bit more. They've gotten better ever since that loss to Notre Dame, and Mike Oko, I think, is going to do a really nice job coaching in this game, and I think he'll have his players fired up. I think it's a close one, but I think Texas A&M's strategy of running the football, it will be the difference here, and I think it's a close one, but I'm going to go with the Aggies here just because they're playing at home, and Texas A&M win this one 21-17. Next up, we got SMU versus Louisville at noon Eastern time as well on ESPN. Louisville favored by 7 points. The over and under at 56.5. You got SMU on the flip side that's coming off a really good win against Florida State. Florida State's not a very good team, but this is an SMU team that's gotten better and better. They were really flat against Nevada in week number 0, and then they had that loss to BYU back on September 6th. But ever since that loss, this SMU team looks like a different team, and they've gotten better and better each and every single game ever since that loss to BYU. Louisville, on the other hand, coming off that tough loss to Notre Dame, how did they bounce back after this loss to Notre Dame? They had some opportunities to win that game, but turnovers definitely kind of a little bit killed them just a little bit. They're also ranked number 22nd in the AP poll, so they did drop a good amount. I did put Louisville on upset alert from this past weekend. I feel like Louisville's probably a little bit beat up. I really kind of been back and forth on this game. In the preseason, I did pick Louisville to win this one, but ever since SMU's gotten kind of better in everything, I feel like SMU definitely has a little bit of momentum going into this game against Louisville. And obviously, Louisville, after the loss to Notre Dame, maybe they're not really focused here. They're probably overlooking SMU just a little bit. And I think SMU gets it done. I think SMU pulls off the upset here. I won't be really shocked here if SMU does pull off the upset in real life, but in my opinion, I think the Mustangs does it. I think they win it 31-28. Again, I think Louisville's all beat up after that loss to Notre Dame. They probably, are all beat up, and they just really don't come out here pretty, I think the first half, it could be all SMU, but Louisville finds a way to come back in this one to make it an interesting finish. I think a turnover probably changes the difference, but I'm going to go with SMU here to pull off the upset. And if SMU wins this game, they'll definitely be ranked in the top 25 for me, definitely next weekend. So this game at noon Eastern time on Saturday on ESPN, and I got SMU winning this one 31-28. Next up, we got Iowa versus Ohio State, 3:30 Eastern time on CBS. Buckeyes favored by 20.5. Ohio State beat Michigan State last week 38-7. Wasn't even a close game whatsoever. The Buckeyes have played 4 games. Do we think this is a top 5 team? I really don't know. The offense, I'd really have to see how good they're going to be against a really good defensive team. And they'll get that, of course, this weekend with Iowa. Iowa's coming out of a bye week. We don't really know much about them either, but the offense we know is not going to be really good for Iowa. I don't really think this is going to be a close game, but, it could be a close game in the first half. It could be a defensive battle. We're not really expecting a lot of points to be scored. I think this is how the game goes down. I think first half it will be low scoring. The Hawkeyes do, hang around for a half or two. I think they run out of gas, though, and I think Ohio State's offense will start to get things going. And I think the Buckeyes win this one. At the end of the day, they win it by 17 points. They don't get to that 20.5 point spread, but I think the Buckeyes win it here 27-10. Again, Ohio State playing at home, that does give them a big advantage in this one. If it was on the road at Iowa, I would definitely make this a really close, low-scoring type game. I probably would stick with Ohio State, but you never know in this one. I feel like Iowa can maybe come out really competitive, but I think Ohio State wins this one 27-10, and this is the 3:30 CBS kickoff time. Next up, we got Auburn versus Georgia, another SEC matchup here, 3:30 Eastern time on ABC. How about Georgia favored by 24? Even after coming off a loss to Alabama, they're favored by 24 points in a rivalry game, which does make sense. Auburn's been a disappointment so far this year. They're sitting there at 2-3. They've had a tough schedule, so far this year. They had to play Oklahoma, of course, last weekend. That was a very tough loss for them. Even though Auburn had full control in that game, it looked like they were going to win it there in the fourth quarter, but Oklahoma just came out of nowhere and made some really big 3 plays there. Auburn, I don't really think they're going to be, I don't think they're going to be really ready for this one. Georgia, on the other hand, coming off the loss to Alabama, how do they bounce back here after the loss to Alabama this past weekend? I think Georgia's going to come out really fired up in this one because it's a rivalry game, and also they're playing at home for the first time since like September the 14th. So yeah, it's been a long time since Georgia's been back at home in Athens, and I feel like with the home crowd behind them, I feel like this game will just not be really even close. I don't think the Tigers are on Georgia's level either. Even though the game was really close last year, it was a 7-point win by Georgia on the road at Jordan-Hare. I think Georgia gets the win here. They really get revenge here on Auburn for the close game last year, and I think Georgia comes out really angry after that loss to Alabama, and they show why Georgia is still a top 5 team. So I got Georgia winning this one 34-13, and again, I don't really think this game is all going to be that close. Next up, we got Ole Miss versus South Carolina. So we stay in the SEC here. This game at 3:30 Eastern time on ESPN. The Rebels favored by 9 points and the over and under at 53.5. You got Ole Miss that's coming off a very tough game against Kentucky. It was their first real test against a really good defensive team. Kentucky is a pretty solid team, and you got South Carolina here that beat Kentucky in week number 2. This is a really solid South Carolina team, and also this is a road game here for Ole Miss. And somehow Ole Miss is still ranked in the top 15, even though they lost to an unranked team in Kentucky that's just pretty average. But I think you can call Kentucky now pretty solid, especially after they beat Ole Miss. I feel like South Carolina with, Kentucky's game plan from last weekend. I think South Carolina will have a game plan here. They're going to run the football in this game and try to wear down that Ole Miss defense. And I tell you what, I kind of been back and forth on this game. In the preseason, I did pick Ole Miss here, but after Ole Miss got beat by Kentucky, I really don't think this Ole Miss team is a top 15 team, just based off of what they've done against Kentucky. And also, they were tested for the first time last weekend, and I think this will be even a more bigger test. This is their second road game, but this will definitely be their first tough road game ever since that Wake Forest game. And I think South Carolina comes out fired up. The crowd will be loud in this one, and I think it will be a tough game, a hard-fought game, a competitive game. And I'm going to go with the upset here. I think South Carolina gets the upset over Ole Miss. They win it 37-34, so a high-scoring game. And again, I think Ole Miss is all beat up after that Kentucky game, and South Carolina running the football, I think that could be the difference here. And I think at the end of the game, a turnover probably changes the difference, or a game-winning field goal as well. So watch out for this one. South Carolina and Ole Miss at 3:30 Eastern time here on ESPN. Next up, Clemson versus Florida State. 7 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. Clemson favored by 14.5. Florida State, they've been a disappointment. They're sitting there at 1-4. I know this is not a big game. It was supposed to be a big game in the preseason, both of these teams. I did pick Florida State to win in the preseason, but I'm definitely changing my pick here. Florida State's just been a really big disappointment this year, and also they are coming off a brutal loss to SMU from this past weekend. Clemson on the other side, they've been better ever since that Georgia game in week 1. This offense has been very explosive. The defense is going to get better and better as the season goes along. Cade Klubnik looks like a better quarterback than he has been in the last 2 years, and Clemson is in the top 15 in the rankings. I think Clemson shows why they are the second best team here in the ACC, but also definitely a top 25 team, and also don't really count them out of the playoff picture. I don't really think this game is all that close. Florida State also, DJ Uiagalelei is not playing in this game, even though he's not been really good for them this year. I think Clemson wins this one in a blowout 35-14. So like I said, I'm going to go with Clemson here. Not even a close game whatsoever. And the Tigers get the win here 35-14. Next up, Tennessee versus Arkansas, 7:30 Eastern time on ABC. Tennessee favored by 14, also by a couple touchdowns if you want to call it, and the over and under is at 59.5. Arkansas is coming off a pretty tough loss to Texas A&M. Just talked about that game a little bit earlier. Arkansas, how do they bounce back after the loss to Texas A&M? Are they all beat up after that game against the Aggies after playing a really physical defensive team? They're taking on a Tennessee team that's a very explosive offense. We've known that, of course, under Josh Heupel. They're ranked number 4th in the country. Tennessee's coming out of a bye week. They beat Oklahoma a couple weeks ago. The difference was their defense. Tennessee looks like they have a pretty good defensive team. But, coming out of the bye week, does that kind of, really make the defense a little bit, not healthy going to this game? I really don't know. This game can definitely go 2 different ways, like I mentioned in the upset alert video from yesterday. It could be a shootout. It could be a low-scoring type game. In a shootout, though, I do trust Tennessee here. I think both teams are going to score some points in this one. I think it's a close, high-scoring game in the first half, but second half, I think Tennessee's defense will, get things together, and I think the Tennessee offense will do their thing. So I think Tennessee wins this one. They pull away in the second half, and they cover that 14-point spread. And I got them winning this one, 42-28. Like I said, a lot of points in the first half, but second half, it's going to be all Tennessee, and their defense will make the difference as well. So I got Tennessee beating Arkansas here, and this game will be at 7:30 Eastern time on ABC on Saturday. Next up, we got Michigan versus Washington, a Big Ten Conference game at 7:30 Eastern time on NBC. How about this, though? Like I said in the upset alert video from yesterday, Washington is favored by 2.5 points. I mean, that doesn't make any sense for a Washington team that's 3-2, and for a team that, Michigan is ranked number 10th here in the country. I know Michigan's been inconsistent here on the defensive side of the football in the second half, and I know their offense is not really the best in the country like how it was last year, but Michigan definitely will run the football here. I think that's going to be their strategy here once again, to run the football and wear down that, defensive team of Washington. I think Washington's going to score some points in this game. I think, like I said, in the first half, Michigan will probably dominate like they've been doing in the last 2 games, how they did against USC and also, Minnesota from last weekend. But I think that inconsistency on the defensive side of the football will happen again, and I think this will be a really close game, and I think it also can go either way. Michigan, though, I think they get it done here. It's a close game at the end of the day, 24-21. This is a rematch, of course, from last year's national championship, and it will be a closer game this time, and also Michigan playing on the road for the first time. But I actually won't be shocked here if Washington pulled off the upset, in my opinion. I have to go with Michigan here. I think that, they finished the game like how they've been doing in the last 2 games. A turnover could probably change the difference, or maybe like a game-winning touchdown. But we'll see what happens. Michigan and Washington here at 7:30 Eastern time on NBC. And then next up, we got USC versus Minnesota, 7:30 Eastern time on the Big Ten Network. USC favored by 8 points. So both of these teams are pretty similar. They're coming off losses to Michigan. USC a couple weeks ago lost to, Michigan, and then Minnesota last week. They were really well behind in that Michigan game, but they nearly came back and won that game. Minnesota, I think, is going to come out really fired up in this one. USC ranked number 11th in the AP poll. I think Minnesota their strategy will definitely run the football here, just like I talked about it with South Carolina and Ole Miss. I think Minnesota will definitely run the football here and try to really waste the clock down, but I just think USC is a little bit better of a team. In the preseason, I did pick Minnesota here to probably win this game. But, based off of what's happened so far, I feel like USC will definitely, come out ready to go in the second half. Maybe this USC team probably comes back from behind. Maybe they're down like 20-3 at the half. Minnesota's dominating the game for the most part on the running game. USC, though, in the second half, just like what they did to Wisconsin this past weekend, they get the win. They pull away in the second half, and they win it here. But a close one, 27-20. I think USC wins this one here, and they survive on the road here at Minnesota. But won't be surprised here if Minnesota probably pulls off the upset. And then finally, we got Miami versus California, 10:30 Eastern Time on ESPN. Miami favored by 10 points, and the over and under is at 54.5. This is where College Game Day is going to go, which is very surprising, to be honest. This is not like a big-time game, but, either way, Miami is probably on upset alert here. Miami is coming off a really close win against Virginia Tech. This will definitely only be the second true tough road game here for the Hurricanes. They also had to go out west here, which is a very long ways away to travel. Miami had that Friday night game against Virginia Tech, so they've had some time to prepare, for the traveling and everything, but do I think that's still going to affect them here? I mean, they're 5-0 coming into this game. California is not a bad 3-1 team. Yes, they lost to Florida State a couple weeks ago, a game they probably should have won, to be honest, but that game, of course, was on the road and everything. And this is a California team that beat a pretty solid Auburn team, so I won't be shocked here if Cal actually pulled off the upset. I think they can make this game a really close, low-scoring type game. But, I think Miami definitely clearly is the better team at the end of the day. I think it is a close game here. Miami probably survives it here 24-17. Again, it's a close game, but like I said, don't really be shocked here if Cal does pull off the upset. But I got to go with the Hurricanes here to win this one 24-17. Again, I just think they're the better team at the end of the day. But those are my game picks and predictions heading into week 6 of the 2024 college football season. Let me guys know what you think about these predictions, and also give me your picks and predictions down in the comments below for all 10 of these games. And thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.